Salutations, everyone. It is Thursday. That means it's time for NXT Talk, the podcast where we talk about all things NXT. We are your tour guides in this everlasting trip that is professional wrestling. I am Boris, and this week I am joined by Matt.
Bonjour! How's everyone doing out there? Happy Thanksgiving to our American friends, listeners, compadres.
That's right. Happy Thanksgiving to everyone. Happy real Thanksgiving, as I love to call it.
Bold.
No, we don't have any gobbledygookers coming out of eggs. We don't have gobbledygookers winning the 24/7 belt today. But we do have a lot of talk about wrestling and pro wrestling related television shows that happen on Wednesdays. And what a night it was for professional wrestling, to say the least.
I think it was a really good Wednesday night war. I think yet again, NXT has proved to be superior to AEW for probably the second week in a row, but they were both good shows, and I think it's safe to say that they will both be more entertaining than the football games today.
Oh, man, 100%. I'm really, if it wasn't for the fact that it actually was football, I'd be pretty pissed off.
I mean, yeah, I have the day off. It's a nice football Sunday. I'm gonna crank some beers, watch a couple games. But yeah, they are terrible. Houston versus Detroit, ugh.
Yeah.
Dallas versus Washington, ugh.
Yeah.
But I do have some fantasy players going. Will Fuller, the fifth. Antonio Gibson. Let it ride, boys.
Yeah, exactly, man. Oh, it's just crazy. And of course, it has to be teams from the NFC East that are facing against each other. So, because that is God's division right now. So let's have fun watching the games later. But for now, we're going to talk about all things pro wrestling, all things NXT, all things Wednesday Night Wars. And yeah, so I do agree with you that last night NXT was the better show. As we talk about the show, as we review the matches, we do give our rating, but because we are the young guns, because we're new and fresh and we like thinking outside the box, we're done with 5-star reviews. So Matt and I always have a little fun with that. Matt, this week I was thinking about this at about 5 in the morning. Because I couldn't sleep, I figured what we would use for our rating system.
It came to you in a fever dream. I'm excited. Yeah. What is it, Boris?
So this came from one of the funnier segments of NXT, and that was this week we're going to use William Regal Playas.
I'm for it. That was really good.
All right.
Let's do it. Shout out to Teddy Long.
Yes, that was great. I thoroughly enjoyed that, but we will get to that segment in a little bit. So let's just start because we have a lot of things to talk about. Not only are we going to be reviewing NXT from last night, we are going to be giving our best match, best promo. We're then going to expand on the week that was pro wrestling. We're going to give you what made us pop, what made us rant, and then I think we're going to call it a day because, personally, I just want to get mentally prepared for the lackluster games that we're going to watch later. The Raw of games for later today. All right, so NXT from November 25th from the Capitol Wrestling Center in Winter Park, Florida. So the show starts off with a video package highlighting the return of Finn Balor. Then we get right into the show. Match number 1 has Ember Moon versus Candice LeRae with Indy Hartwell. So we go straight to the Capitol Wrestling Center with Kevin Owens as guest commentator tonight. Candice LeRae is already in the ring with Indy Hartwell. Ember Moon makes her way out with her new theme, her furry tail and whatnot. And we get ready to start our first match of the evening. Beth Phoenix and Vic Joseph compliment Ember Moon on her return. KO pays respect to Ember's drive to make a name for herself here in NXT. So the bell rings and we start. So I overall really like this match. I wish they were given more time, but week after week, I feel like I'm starting to sound like a broken record, and that's when I say that I am so happy that Ember Moon is back in NXT, that she's finally, has some, has a path. She's got drive. She has something to do week over week. And I will also point out the fact that Candice LeRae right now might be my favorite heel act in all of NXT.
I'm not sure if I would say favorite just because there are two or three contenders, but she's doing great work all the time. She's she's extremely watchable. Candice LeRae was the star of this particular show. She showed up in like 4 or 5 different segments. She was the one who carried it from start to finish, and she did a great job. It was never too much Candice. There was one point where I was like, oh wow, another Candice, but it wasn't like I didn't want to see it. I was just shocked that they were pushing her so hard, but she deserves it. She's doing great.
Yeah. Anything you want to point out in this match? Was there anything that stuck out for you?
Well, we're getting near the finish, but the one thing that stuck out to me is the Eclipse. Ember Moon's finisher is such a beautiful move. It's so gorgeous when she hits it. If you're not familiar with it, it's like a twisting stone cold stunner off the top to an opponent who's standing in the ring. You have to see it. It's such an incredible wrestling move.
It really is, and it's one of those where it's kind of like, the one thing about moves like that is I always question why you have to climb the top rope and do a flip to execute like essentially a stunner. You can argue the fact that you're going to get more momentum off of the rope through the flip as you fall down. Gravity, science and gravity are a hell of a thing, but, I don't want to get into that. It looks cool and it must hurt.
Exactly, it's wrestling. No, it's the it probably hurts Ember more than the receiver on most cases.
Yep.
But no, exactly. It's gravity. It's science. It's the G-force, Boris.
The G-force. All right, so Ember Moon is in a chin lock. She does eventually escape it. Ember attempts some offense, whipping LeRae. LeRae comes back and locks in the Gargano escape. And I love the fact that at this point, Vic Joseph and Kevin Owens had some funny back and forth. Ember Moon repositions and rises up, but LeRae adjusts and leaps on Ember's back, clinching her legs around Moon's waist and applying a sleeper. Ember starts to fade, but as the wherewithal to flop back, landing on LeRae, Moon begins to fire up now, sending LeRae from corner to corner. Ember Moon hits a suplex, keeps a grip on and rolls up, lifting Candice up and hitting a pancake suplex. Moon goes up too. Dakota Kai gets on the apron to distract the ref, and Hartwell moves into the ring. Moon dives, hits Hartwell with the Eclipse. Candice comes in from behind her and hits the Wicked Stepsister, picking up the win. 1, 2, 3. I gotta say, the Wicked Stepsister is such an awesome name for a finisher. But your winner of this match, Candice LeRae.
100% agree with you, Boris, and I agree with your earlier assessment that this match could have gone longer. I would have liked to have seen more, but it was a good little match. Definitely something that I enjoyed watching. I would say above average. If we want to get into our playa rating,
let's get into our playa rating.
I would drop 3 playas on this match out of a potential 5 playas for a 60% playa percentage.
So you would go playa.
I would go playa on this one.
Oh man, we're gonna have too much fun with this. Yeah, I agree with you. This is your, and I'm starting to think that 3 stars is turning into our average NXT wrestling rating. So that's kind of like the bar at this point,
Yeah, they're like, if you look at the totality of wrestling, they're like above average matches. And if you look at every match that has ever happened, and like if you're actually trying to rate matches seriously, they are slightly above average matches. But there's not a ton to them. It's not something you're going to bounce your grandkids on your knee and tell them about one day. I think 3 stars is a pretty fair rating for a lot of
I agree. One thing, now that we're having this discussion, is that this was a good TV match. You know that there's a difference between a house show match, a TV match, and a pay-per-view match. And I would say that this was a very good TV match. We get good action between the two. Both people get to show off what they have, what their arsenal is, and it progresses a storyline, but it doesn't give you everything that these two people can do.
Leaves you wanting more, Boris. Leaves you wanting more. And as you mentioned, sometimes you even get a fun angle during these matches.
Exactly. All right. So let's talk about the shenanigans that happened after the match. So, um, essentially, uh, Tony Storm comes out to back up Ember Moon as Kai Gonzalez LeRae Hartwell occupy the ring. Storm and Moon nod, charge the ring, but Storm grabs her leg as Ember Moon is trying to jump into the ring. She gets yanked out, begins to attack Ember Moon, yeah, there you go. Call me an electrician because I was shocked.
Heel turn for Tony. I definitely didn't see it coming. And I'm not sure that I love it right now just because I do think Tony Storm has potential to be a top babyface. I think she has that potential, but it's easier to be a heel. I'm sure she will do entertaining work. And, let's give it a chance, of course. But yeah, I was a touch disappointed just because I think Tony Storm has limitless potential. And I'd rather see her as a babyface, but who knows?
I agree with that assessment. I also think that, it's one of those things where not everyone needs to be a heel at some point in their career. I feel like everyone right now in NXT, everyone that you would never think of, Dakota Kai, Candice LeRae, Tony Storm, with their heel runs, it just seems a little cliche. It just seems like par for course at this point. One thing I do like is the fact that this happened now, with 10 days before
War Games! Yeah, don't do the turn in the cage every time.
Yep, this leads to my theory of Balor, we're one step closer. One step closer.
That's true.
All right.
Should do it.
Yep, so there you go. Tony Storm is now a heel, and, at this point, my assumption was, well, I guess she's going to be in the War Games match, but more on that in a little bit. All right, so our next segment is... before we go to break, we see the Undisputed Era with perfect timing as they walk into the building. That I love it when you're late to work and you walk in right when you're needed.
It's pretty great. It's almost like they weren't late at all.
My other favorite part
although
about
they were
this,
quite clear.
I don't want to get too political. We're not about politics outside of wrestling, which sometimes is worse than actual politics. But my favorite part about that, and this is so small, such a small detail, was the fact that they walked into the employees only door. Someone call Andrew Yang.
It's true. It's clearly marked. To be fair, I don't think there's an independent contractors only door.
No, I gotta have a little bit of fun. All right, so in the ring, we get the Undisputed Era. So they're making their way out to the ring. As we return, we get a clip from Pat McAfee's show, and all 4 members of the Undisputed Era are in the ring and get on the mics. All right, so here we are. Adam Cole mentions that Pat claims that his group, have taken over the show. Cole says that they've heard it over and over before. Cole gives props to Pat for giving the Undisputed Era a dose of their own medicine, but that's all right. Cole calls Pat a coward for not being present, but says that he's looking forward to 2 weeks from now at
War Games, by God, which I believe is some sort of tag team match. I've read on the internet.
I love it. I love every second of that. All right. Yeah, so the Undisputed Era each take their turn saying their awkward, not improvised lines. Then we start talking about the match later tonight, which is the War Games Advantage match. So it determines who will enter last into, or first. Who gets the first pick into War Games? Sorry. And all we know is that Pete Dunne has been chosen. And then at that point, Kyle O'Reilly begs Cole to give him another shot at Pete Dunne after Dunne turned worked on him. Cole loves the idea of an angry Kyle O'Reilly fighting Pete. He says this is the Kyle O'Reilly who took out the NXT champion. The Undisputed Era has fought for championships and bragging rights, but this time they're fighting to drag Pat McAfee and his team through absolute hell. Cole promises to remind everyone who they are and says that Pat, after War Games, we will never ever be the same, and that is undisputed. Well, as you alluded to, the Undisputed Era does not do the best work when they're faces.
Yeah, so I'm actually going to save this, but because you spoiler alert, you might be hearing me talk about this again later in the show in a different segment. But yeah, so what I will say is after watching Pat McAfee come out here and destroy it as a rookie, and even like Tommaso Ciampa. Oh, actually, I think we missed a Legado del Fantasma promo, which was pretty good. Or maybe that that might be coming up. But anyway, Legado del Fantasma doing great promo work. There's Johnny Gargano, Candice LeRae doing great promo work. Damian Priest doing great promo work. It really stood out how bad this was. It was not good.
Yep. It wasn't good at all. And you are right. I did forget the Legado del Fantasma promo. I do apologize on that. What is wrong with me? Man, it's too early to do this today.
Nah, it happens. You know.
Yeah. No, I didn't. I overall just, you hit the nail on the head. It was what it was. All right, so backstage, we are with Candice LeRae, Indy Hartwell, Raquel Gonzalez, and Dakota Kai. So Mackenzie Mitchell wants to talk to Candice LeRae about what happened moments ago. LeRae tells her she needs a moment, then discusses with her colleagues. And I just love Candice's heel work here. Like move to the side, get away from us, we need to talk. Everyone agrees. And Team LeRae is Candice LeRae, Dakota Kai, Raquel Gonzalez, and Toni Storm. That's when Toni Storm steps in front of the camera and says that she's fine with that, and she tells everyone when she returned, she was going to be whole new Toni Storm as we go to break.
So Candice yet again carrying a segment, doing a great job, and yet we're going to see Toni Storm. We're going to see how she does as a heel. You got to give it a chance. That's my entire thing. I can't bail on that now. You got to give it a chance.
Yep.
I guess the same can be said about the Undisputed Era, but they objectively did a poor job, I feel like.
I agree, and because we're likely going to talk about that later, I'll save some of my thoughts. All right, then we get a match that I was thoroughly looking forward to when I saw that this was going to happen, and that is Timothy Thatcher versus Kushida. All right, so when we return from break, Thatcher's in the ring. Kushida makes his way to the ring as the commentary team mentions how dangerous Kushida's been this year. He's been more vicious than ever. The ref separates them, and Tommaso Ciampa comes down the ramp dragging a steel chair. Again, love Kevin Owens during this little walk. Ciampa sets it up at the bottom of the ramp and takes a seat to watch the match. We're reminded that Ciampa's requested match with Thatcher, but Thatcher said that he has no quarrel with Ciampa. So we start things off.
Great work.
Yeah. Kushida and Thatcher lock up and execute a series of attempted submissions and counters. This match was very much on the ground. A lot of submissions, a lot of counters. Matt, did you watch Kushida when he was in New Japan?
So I'm not a huge New Japan guy, but I do try to catch the big shows, at least like Dominion, the G1 final. There was one year where I watched every G1 show and wrote about them, and then I had to stop watching New Japan for like 18 months. Like, yeah, it killed me. I actually stopped watching wrestling for a couple months. It just completely burned me out. But I did watch some New Japan, and I was always impressed by Kushida. Kushida's an incredible in-ring wrestler. He's really, really good.
All right, the reason why I was asking was because, my brother and I were huge Kushida fans, mainly because of the Back to the Future gimmick. Go figure, the gimmick is what got me interested in him. But and I know that he's an MMA guy, and I know that he can do the ground mat work, but I've never seen him do as much ground mat work as he's been doing lately. So it's nice and refreshing to see him kind of this character of I'm angry, so I'm gonna break everyone's arms type thing, and that's pretty much what we saw in this match. Kushida was focusing on Thatcher's arm and elbow, and they told a great story there because Thatcher, being the tough guy that he is, he would he did a great job of selling the arm. Kushida would get the advantage. Thatcher would overpower him, but ultimately the arm is what got Thatcher down. Overall, what did you think of this match?
I really like this match. It was an awesome scientific chess match style wrestling match. The old Thatch can style was in full display. And it's like you said about Kushida, like he's really leaning in to the scientific style. He's really leaning into his wrestling background.
Yeah.
And it's working wonders for him. This was a great matchup on paper. And I actually didn't see that it was advertised. So when they said coming up next, Thatcher versus Kushida, I was like, what? Yes, hook it to my veins, Boris.
Yeah,
this match was great. It's actually a contender, I would say, for match of the night. I'm not sure we're gonna get into that, obviously, but I think this was a really good. If we're gonna drop our rating, you can say what you will about this match before we do.
Yep. All right, so Thatcher gets all kinds of twisted up with Kushida's body before finally locking in an ankle lock. Kushida immediately slides out of it and down Thatcher's body, dropping the catch specialist and locking in his own ankle lock. Thatcher escapes and locks Kushida in a sleeper hold with his legs body scissored around Kushida. Kushida squirms and gets to his feet. Thatcher tries to lock in another sleeper. Kushida tries to hyperextend Thatcher's left elbow, then sends Thatcher off of him. Thatcher falls to the outside. Kushida follows, and both men battle at the ringside. Thatcher goes shoulder first into the ring post again, working that arm, working that shoulder. We see Thatcher on his knees, staring at Ciampa. His nose and mouth are bloody. What an awesome sight that was. That was like perfect. Unfortunately, looked like he was actually bleeding, but the actual visual looked really cool. Kushida takes him inside. Both men exchange uppercuts, nasty looking uppercuts at that. Thatcher hits the double underarm suplex. Tommaso stands up, eyeing Thatcher. Kushida capitalizes on it, flipping Thatcher down and locks in the hoverboard lock. Thatcher taps out immediately because all match his arm was being worked on. His arm couldn't take it anymore. And, that's that. So your winner by submission, Kushida. So a couple things before we're going to your rating. Number one, love this match. Number two, one thing I love about NXT is similar to the other show on Wednesday, typically speaking, we have good, clean finishes of matches. They aren't afraid to give big L's to certain people. And overall, Thatcher still looks strong. His arm was going to fall off. That's why he tapped out. And we further the story with Tommaso Ciampa.
Yeah, absolutely. So there was a little bit of chicanery in that Tommaso Ciampa kind of like stood up and threw down his chair, which sort of caused a distraction to Timothy Thatcher. But still, it was still a pretty clean finish. And Kushida's getting pushed, and he deserves it. He's a really great wrestler. This was a great match. I really, really liked it. It was like you said about the previous. It was a TV style match, in that they left us wanting more. But it was a great performance. I'm going to give it 4 playas. I'm going to go playa for an 80% playa percentage on this one. I thought it was really good.
Yep, I agree 100%. I really enjoyed this match a lot. And I got to say that this NXT gave us takeover quality matchups in the sense of people facing people, not the match themselves, but this left me wanting to watch Timothy Thatcher, Kushida, in a 25-minute knockout brawl.
Yeah, 1,000,000,000% agree. I hope we get it on a future takeover. It doesn't look like it's coming anytime soon, but it's in the back pocket, and I'm excited to see it. And we need a bigger push for Kushida. So it's good that he's beating Thatcher, who is a pushed, credible heel. But yeah, I'm ready for Kushida in the title picture.
Yep, Kushida's gotten 2 major wins in the past little while. Once against a guy who we don't talk about, and one against Timothy Thatcher. So, overall that's pretty good. All right, so then we get a video package from last week's NXT Women's Championship match. Our commentary team takes us to a video package featuring clips of last week's incredible title match, which both Matt and I praised thoroughly. So if you haven't listened to our review, you should. Both women give us some voiceover narration during this package. We see the vicious attacks that Rhea took on her arm, and hear from a WWE physician, because they're as credible can be. Rhea says that Io putting her through the table destroyed her back. The only problem for Rhea was she couldn't stand up, staggering into the ring, and 3 seconds later, Io Shirai is the champion. Rhea says she doesn't like Io, but she respects her. This is an ongoing theme moving forward, and wonders where she goes from here, admitting that she doesn't know. We'll see Rhea Ripley live later. That's that.
This was really good. Anytime they do these hype videos, they knock them out of the park. Specifically when building a match or talking about a match, they're always 9 or 10 out of 10. They're very, very good.
It's amazing, and I know that this is the Kevin Dunn, because I'm staring at Pete Dunne's name right in front of my eyes right now. I know that this is the Kevin Dunn syndrome with the main roster, but it's amazing to think that NXT, it comes from the same company who makes these SmackDown and Raw videos.
It's actually crazy to think that this is the same company that does anything related to SmackDown and Raw.
You're right. All right. So backstage, we are with Mackenzie Mitchell, Pete Dunne, Oni Lorcan, and Danny Burch. Pete Dunne and his allies say that they've broken the spirit of the Undisputed Era once, and they'll do it again. And say it.
War Games, by God, Boris.
They'll finish the job. Quick little promo. Anything to say about that?
I liked it. I think Pete Dunne was like a good understated heel in this. He's not only is he the best wrestler in the group, obviously, but he's probably maybe becoming the non-Pat McAfee, who is only there for promos. But of the 3 wrestlers, he's probably the best promo of the 3 as well. So yeah, Pete Dunne is in a spot now that he can really sink his teeth into, and he's doing it. I'm really liking it. And his top knot is getting more and more aggressive every week.
Yep. And he's got a face only a mother can love. The kisser on that guy. He's such a good heel. All right.
Great.
So then comes, spoiler alert, maybe my favorite segment of all of Wednesday, and that's the Kevin Owens Show, NXT edition. Kevin Owens points out that last November he came back as a special competitor. This November he's back as a commentator. Next November maybe he'll be the bellboy. He then gets to his guests, welcoming out your North American champion, Leon Ruff. Leon comes out in dress casual slacks and a dress shirt, belt over his shoulder, waist, knees, and toes, and all smiles as the commentary team compliments his spirit and sharp look. KO welcomes Ruff, who thanks him for having him. KO mentions that they might as well use the chairs, and because they look real comfy. He says that after watching Ruff's last 2 weeks, he thought, why not have a Kevin Owens show so Ruff can tell his story. He tells Ruff that the floor is his. Ruff tells us that he signed his WWE contract 7 weeks ago, and he's wanted to be a WWE superstar for his whole life. KO asked to see the clips, so we see the clip from 2 weeks ago when Leon Ruff surprisingly defeated Johnny Gargano to win the North American title in a major upset. In the ring, Ruff says that moment when he won the title and puts it around his waist and it fell to his feet was so embarrassing. KO tells him not to worry about it, and the same happened to him too. I burst out laughing when he said that. He asked what it means to him to have the title. Ruff says, It's an inspiration to people like him who were told he couldn't succeed. KO tells Ruff that he should be very proud of himself. And I kind of like the dynamic between the two. It's kind of like you have this rookie green guy and your chiseled, grizzled veteran in Kevin Owens telling him, man, you gotta step up, be happy. You worked your ass off here. It wasn't.
Own it. You deserve it, kind of thing. This was like it was a unique segment in wrestling. You don't usually see. You always see like the you don't deserve it. You're small. You're dog shit. You're nothing. But Kevin Owens was like, no, man, you earned this. You made it here yourself. You got the win. This is pretty good. I like this part of it, and then, it only got better.
Yeah, and then KO cautions Ruff that there are people in the back who don't have the same conviction and want his title. KO gets Ruff well and fired up, and he hops to his feet and yells into the mic. He yells that he can do whatever he wants as he beat Gargano not once but twice. KO literally face palms and tells him, when you say someone's name, they always come out. I bet he's back there screaming at someone to hit his music so he can come out. So there you go. That's what happens when you get, when you need to interrupt someone's promo. You get up, you run, and you say, put on my damn music, and then it happens. All right, so then KO does a count.
We have an official canon explanation for this. This was great. I love that.
I did too.
Tie every promo in the history of Raw and SmackDown together now.
Yep. KO then does the countdown, 3, 2, 1, silence. Finally, Gargano's music cuts in, and KO says he was a little off with his countdown. Gargano comes out yelling no and asks if this is a prank show and if Ashton Kutcher is going to pop out of one of these pods. Kevin Owens' response was the best, as he says, great timely reference. Gargano gets in the ring. KO gets him a chair. He tells Gargano he's a good host. Gargano says, thank you for the chairs. I don't want a stupid chair. Gargano throws his chair out the ring. As this was happening, someone hands KO another chair, and Gargano yells again that he doesn't want a stupid chair, and Owen tells him it's not for him. Gargano yells at Ruff a little more, telling him that he didn't deserve to win the title, and only did so because of that arrow shooting freak, meaning Damian Priest. KO shakes his head and reminds Johnny what he just said about saying someone's name. He does another countdown, and out comes Damian Priest. Priest gets in the ring and tells Johnny that he sucks and lost to Ruff. KO offers him a chair. Priest thanks him but declines. Priest goes on to say that Ruff beat Gargano twice. Gargano yells at Priest, saying that Ruff only won because of Priest, and that Gargano wants to prove that Ruff is a fluke, a joke. Gargano and Ruff get in each other's faces. Priest calls Gargano. Johnny chokes over there, and then Priest reminds Ruff of his comments last week when Ruff said he'd take on both Gargano and Priest. And he also reminds everyone that he's never had his rematch. KO laments not having a Theodore Long to come out and make the match. If only the NXT version of Theodore Long would come out. And then William Regal's music hits. And I love William Regal and the character that essentially he is now. He literally is the guy who comes out for 1 second, announces matches, and walks back. So Regal makes it official. Leon Ruff will defend his North American title against Damian Priest and Johnny Gargano at
War Games, back on! It's an NXT takeover card.
He then smirks at them, ends his declaration by saying, Playa, and heads to the
Hence
back.
Our ratings for the day. This was a great promo. There's a little thing, too, in Damian Priest's countdown where he did the countdown, it didn't happen. And then he did it again, it didn't happen. And then Owens was like, oh, maybe things are changing around here in NXT. And then as he said that, the music hit, I laughed at that too. Kevin Owens was hilarious in this. This was really, really good.
I love exactly. Kevin Owens was just, sitting. He was just sitting, watching this happen. It's kind of like, again, the grizzled veteran knowing exactly what's going to go down, and just taking it all in. I really enjoyed this. As you can tell, I took a lot of notes here because I really, really enjoyed this entire segment.
Yeah, and there's a way to do comedy in wrestling that doesn't bury anyone. It doesn't make anyone look dumb or silly. It's just actually funny. And a good way to do it is have a character like Kevin Owens who's on the outside of the feud. So the three people in the feud can be serious. And he was just kind of driving. It was like he was like the comedy and he had three straight men by his side actually doing the wrestling. But this was a great segment. This was awesome. Home run.
Yeah. And again, like Leon Ruff. I'm always almost called him Leo Rush, Not gonna happen. But Leon Ruff, man, he's his mic work isn't the best, but the character that he's portraying, this happy-go-lucky, I'm happy to be here type guy, is just, it's heartwarming. It warms my otherwise cold, bitter heart.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with that. I think it's a great character for kids to get into. I think they would love Leon Ruff. I think, yeah, he like I said last week, he's the new 1-2-3 kid. He's a better promo than Sean Waltman ever was, although Sean Waltman was a much better wrestler, I would say. But yeah, this is very good.
Yep. Yeah, no, and again, unpopular opinion, or I guess super popular opinion with the majority of people, is that Leon Ruff is hurting the North American belt. But this is the first time in a long time I actually care about what happens with the North American title. So you tell me, Matt, how is that putting down the title?
It's building. He's building up the title.
Exactly.
I care more about this title now than I have in months. Of course. He's adding value to the title, and everybody who's out there saying, he's devaluing it, is kind of actually helping. So thank you.
All right, then we get
the original and possibly only person driving the Leon Ruff bandwagon. I'm quite excited.
No, you and I are building it piece of wood by plastic tire, one tire and piece of wood at a time, playa.
Play.
I love it. All right, then we get another awesome NXT promo, and that's Finn Balor. Balor says he's back, and the champion fights on Wednesdays. I love that. That was so cool when he, the way that it was produced, the way that he just said it, the script itself, chef's kiss.
Badass black and white shot. Yeah, I like this a lot. This was there's a good little quick promo. Nothing wrong with this.
Yep. All right, then we get a video package that we saw last week with Shotzi Blackheart and
generals gathered in their masses. Fucking burner.
I actually love the fact that they were able to license that song for next week's pay-per-view, and I use that term loosely.
Yes. But yeah, it's funny to see Shotzi Blackheart of all people get the Black Sabbath promo, but hey, it works. She looks crazy, and I buy that she's ready to go to war. That's for sure.
Yep. All right, then we get our next match of the evening as we see Cameron Grimes versus Jake Atlas. We return from break, and Jake Atlas is already in the ring. Cameron Grimes comes down, and the commentary team compliments Atlas's growth over the last few weeks and wonder if Grimes is over his Loomis curse. Grimes starts off aggressive. Atlas attempts to stop it, but Grimes hits a big single-legged dropkick. Grimes sends Atlas into the ropes and telegraphs a backdrop, but Atlas lands on his feet. Both men exchange fists. Atlas sends Grimes into the ropes, but Grimes grabs the ropes and puts on the brakes. Grimes attempts a lariat. Atlas rolls through and gets a close two. Atlas with a big forearm and another attempted cover on Grimes. KO and Vic Joseph mentioned that this could be a big upset for Atlas and a big boost to the 26-year-old's career. Grimes slams down Atlas. Grimes pulls him up and sends Atlas into the ropes. And on the rebound, Grimes hits the cave-in. It's one of my favorite finishers in wrestling, along with Candice LeRae's. And then Grimes gets the 1, 2, 3 for the win. Your winner of this quick contest, Cameron Grimes.
Yeah, Cameron Grimes. Yeah, so the cave-in is like a standing Finn Balor style double stomp. Like he runs and does it to a standing opponent, like you would, I don't know, a drop kick or a crossbody or something. It's absolutely filthy. And when I don't know. I'm sure that there's a way to do it safely, but the man taking that bump could be in a lot of trouble there. Like there's a lot that can go wrong with that one. That's a crazy move.
It's like the coup de grace, right?
Very worthy finisher. I buy it as a finishing move.
For me, I've watched wrestling for, I would say 90-something% of my life. If I can't figure out how they can do the move safely, that's a fucking good move.
I agree with that. That's fair. For sure. So yeah, this match was, I don't know, it was, you could say it was pretty much an average NXT match. I liked it more than that just because the two guys in it are very talented. I feel bad for Jake Atlas, man. He just always seems to be the loser in a short match that got cut for time. That's his current role right now. It kind of sucks. He kind of needs to go heel or something. I don't know what happens with Jake Atlas from here, but I feel bad for him, but this match was fine.
I feel for Atlas the same way I feel about a certain Canadian tag team that we're going to talk about in a little bit.
Yeah. Well, the Canadian tag team, that's what they're here for. I assume that Jake Atlas wasn't hired to be a jobber. But yeah, I thought this match was slightly above average. Let's go 3 players, playa out of 5 for the 60% playa percentage on this one.
All right, I agree with that. So after the match, Grimes is celebrating in the ring, but doesn't see Dexter Lumis coming up behind him. Grimes flees the ring. Lumis stands in the middle of the ring with his black sack of cloth, his brooding hand sack, whatever, and points
His
to the
douchebag
LED.
lacrosse backpack.
Yep, and he points to the LED screen surrounding the ring, and at the top of the ramp, we see clips from their Halloween Havoc match, mostly of Grimes begging for his life and running / fleeing. Lumis pulls a long leather strap out of the black sack and throws one end at Grimes. Grimes grabs it and throws it back, yelling it's not going to happen over and over as he stomps up the ramp. Lumis coldly stares at him with those beautiful blue eyes of his. And then we see Rhea Ripley walking through the back, and she'll be out after the break.
That was a decent segment. I like Dexter Lumis when all he's doing is staring. That's his best role. That's his best feature, and he pulls it off quite well.
Did you ever watch him when he was in Impact?
I was never much of a TNA guy. I watched the start of it later because it's fucking insane and hilarious. Just as wrestle crap. Like I watched like the first 5 or 6 episodes.
Yeah.
Speaking of which, we should talk about that one day down the road. But anyway, it's neither here nor there. But yeah, no, I've seen like the odd, really good match. I watched some of AJ Styles, but I haven't seen 1 second of Samuel Shaw's career before Dexter Lumis. Not 1 second.
Yeah. That was just a general question because I haven't either. there was no enlightenment. There was no, hey, Matt, but he's actually a fantastic wrestler. None of that.
That's definitely what I thought was coming.
I know you did. All right. So backstage, we're with William Regal and Cameron Grimes. Grimes has been summoned to Regal's office. Grimes says he's an important man and has places to be. Regal tells Grimes that the NXT universe, and that made me cringe because I hate that, wants to see Grimes takes on Lumis, and Regal thinks Lumis's idea of a strap match is great. He makes it official. So War Games, we're going to see Lumis versus Grimes in a strap match.
That should be pretty bad, but morbidly watchable. I think I did like Cameron Grimes in this promo, like, Mr. Regal, why do you hate me? That was a fun little line. Cameron Grimes continues to impress both in ring and out of ring with his crazy white trash Ric Flair Jay White gimmick.
Yeah. Cameron Grimes, like I said, or we've talked about in the past, I was a fan of his in Impact as Trevor Lee. He had a lot of goofy things to work with, but he was a great worker. But now he's got a character, and again, I wouldn't be surprised if he's not too different from this character. But he seems so comfortable. His mic work is great. He knows how to act, and he's the one who's, in my opinion, making this feud with Lumis work. Not that I'm a huge fan of Lumis. I you know what? I'm going to give him an honest chance at War Games. I'm going to go into that match thinking absolutely nothing, and I'm sure I'll be pleasantly surprised.
Yeah, I think there's been like 1 or 2 like really good strap matches in the history of wrestling, like maybe.
Savio Vega and Steve Austin as the lights went off was one.
Yeah, that was a good one. I think Carlos Colon and Stan Hansen had one in like 1980 something, 86 maybe. That's actually like incredible. You can find it on YouTube. But yeah, I don't know.
And I recently watched.
Few and far between.
Yeah, and I have a third one for you, and I don't remember who the opponent was, but I saw this recently. It was Bruiser Brody, and I forget who he was facing. But this was in Japan, and it just looked absolutely brutal.
Oh shit! Cool. Yeah. I definitely like to check that out. I'll Google Bruiser Brody strap match after this podcast.
Oh. All right, we cut to the ring, and Rhea Ripley is already in the ring. She compliments Io Shirai and her ability. Rhea mentions that the hug after the match last week was nothing but respect for Io. She says that they respect each other, but it wasn't any kind of sending off party. Rhea says she's here, and she's here to stay, thank God. And she's focused on one thing and will not stop. And then all we hear is, "Are you kidding me?" as Candice LeRae and Tony Storm come out. Candice mocks Rhea and tells her to tell the fans how she's, how much harder she's going to try next time. I love that, like, cocky LeRae attitude. LeRae says the difference between Rhea and LeRae is that Io stole 2 victories from LeRae with help, but she beat Rhea on her own. Besides that, the biggest difference between us, you talk, but can't seem to back it up. I, on the other hand, can talk the talk and walk the walk. She's joined by Raquel Gonzalez and Dakota Kai with an unconscious Io Shirai on her shoulder. Team Kai charged the ring. I guess Team LeRae charges the ring. Ripley slides out and takes out Raquel and Dakota at ringside. She slides back in to brawl with Toni Storm and Candice LeRae. Ripley fights like a Kung Fu ferret, but the numbers are not in her favor. Team LeRae beats her down for 4-on-1 with Io Shirai motionless on the ramp. Raquel Gonzalez slams Rhea, then throws her into the ring post. They take their time beating her down before Team LeRae leaves and walks up the ramp. They stand over the fallen Shirai, smiling at the ring as Rhea Ripley holds her right shoulder and rolls in pain as we go to break. I like the idea of this. I like the overall beatdown, but I'm starting to notice a trend with beatdowns, and I think that, and I don't know how to describe this properly, and I think I'll try my best, and you can expand or elaborate. And that is, they always start off very awkward. It's kind of like people are waiting for their cues because they're following a script. You see this a lot on Dynamite as well. You saw this with Team Taz and Hobbs and Cody and Allen. It just starts off as very awkward because people are looking at their back. They're looking in different directions. They're not paying attention. The fighting and the brawling looks rigged. It is, but overly rigged. You know what I mean?
I know exactly what you mean. I 100% agree with that. That's very true. They're being overdone, and so we're seeing all the holes that can possibly happen in them because they're doing it so often that you can't bat 1,000. They're gonna screw up a couple times.
Yeah.
Also,
it's not a dig. I'm just something that I'm noticing as a trend in wrestling in general. I didn't want to point this one out specifically, but it's just something I'm noticing in general. And when I mean wrestling, I mean Wednesday Night Wars.
Yeah, pretty much I don't watch much else at this point, although I try to keep up with things. I did watch Survivor Series, for example, but yeah, that's neither here nor there. I think another thing that beatdowns are doing way too much is dragging a beaten opponent out and you didn't see the beatdown backstage. Yeah. That's way overdone at this point. It's no longer like, oh my God, like this crazy dramatic thing like it was the first couple times you see it.
Yep.
In kayfabe, sucks for Io, but in real life, pretty good night for Io. She just had to come out and lay on the stage while 4 people beat up Rhea Ripley. Not a bad paycheck there.
Yep.
But I don't know. I thought the idea was good. I didn't really just because we've seen it. It was pretty much every beatdown you've ever seen. But they've clearly set up war games, and I think because Raquel Gonzalez was the one who carried the women's champ out beaten and laid her down on the stage, I think Raquel Gonzalez might be our next challenger to Io Shirai.
See, I was thinking the same thing, but then I thought, wait, I'm watching WWE. Does this actually mean anything? Because there was a day in wrestling where a small sign like that would symbolize and show us who the next contender is going to be. But nowadays, are we just analyzing this too deeply?
That's a really good question. Hopefully NXT has the foresight to do little things like that. But if it were Raw or SmackDown, I would say absolutely not, and we'd be kidding ourselves. But I have faith in young Hunter Hearst Helmsley.
Oh man, Hunter! You know what match? This is a complete just derailing of the podcast right now. Guess what match I recently rewatched?
What's that?
Hunter Hearst Helmsley versus the Ultimate Warrior from WrestleMania 12.
Oh my God. The classic no-sell of the pedigree.
Yep.
Man, it's really wild that they support and prop up the Ultimate Warrior for a number of reasons. But even that Triple H is behind it because Triple H fucking hates that guy, or hated, I guess.
Yep. Yep. Anyways, and this was, I guess, it wasn't my favorite beatdown of the night. My favorite beatdown was the silhouette beatdown from the other show.
I liked it. That was fun.
Yeah.
Definitely.
All right. We get a video package of Zia Lee, Boa, and just gonna say the Master Emperor with air quotes. None of our listeners can see me doing the air quotes, but Matt can. We see them in a
I
car.
can confirm. Air quotes happen.
We see them in a car. They exit and see the older Asian man. Both of them had amazingly horrible white makeup on to look very tired and bags under their eyes. They are then seen bowing and calling him master. He nods and opens the door to a storage unit. It looks like they come in and kneel before a cloaked figure who resembles the Emperor from Star Wars, Palpatine. They're now begging for one more chance, begging for mercy. The Emperor holds up a finger and the Master yells at them to shut up. He then marks their hands with a symbol in black ink and we cut to the ring. I gotta say, this whatever's going on here has me interested enough.
Interested enough is a good way to put it. I was just sitting here praising Triple H, but what the fuck was this? What was going on here? I don't know. I guess again, our whole thing, especially this week, is give it a chance. So I will give it a chance. But this was out there. Zia Lee and Boa looked like they hadn't eaten or slept in weeks. I don't know. This was something. This was a pro wrestling segment.
This was something indeed. All right, next is my favorite match of the night, and that's Everrise versus We Don't Know, because Everrise were in the ring, but before the match can even begin, Zach Gibson and James Drake, better known as the grizzled young veterans from NXT UK, show up and take them out. They get on the mic, reintroduce themselves, and they tell everyone to remember who they are. The match actually never really started.
Yeah, it was funny. I was just telling my roommate who was watching with me, these Everrise guys, they're like Canadian indie staples. Like I've seen them live probably at least 4 or 5 times. Yeah. And then Kevin Owens was talking about how much he loves Everrise and there's guys. And then they get immediately shit cranked by the NXT UK clowns. So that was cool.
Yeah, I actually saw one of the guys from Everrise. I'm going to assume is Martel or Martel something. And he was at the Destiny show when Marty Scurll faced Pete Dunne, literally the night before Raw in Montreal, which was when he had a dark match and was eventually signed to WWE.
That's amazing. Right yep. On.
Small little fun fact of Boris's indie wrestling, whatever.
Boris's indie wrestling corner.
Yeah. All right. We are backstage with Gargano and LeRae. They're asked about what LeRae just did. LeRae and Gargano talk about building their careers and that Gargano is going to win his title back. They get in the car and they drive off, putting Indy Hartwell slowly to the back. But what do we see in the car? We see another ghost face in the back seat, and the commentary team remarked that it's not Indy Hartwell this time.
So someone else is in the group. I think they're relying too much on who is the mysterious masked man person. We're going to see it again in this show, and there's only one segment left. But yeah, I liked this at the time, but in retrospect, I like it less because they're overdoing it. But hey, another good Candice LeRae promo to wrap it up, bring it all home. And I also quite enjoyed that both Candice and Johnny were wearing white pants. Classic heel maneuver.
I also want to buy their Power Couples t-shirt.
It's a pretty good t-shirt.
You and I should wear that.
I disagree strongly, but I respect your enthusiasm, sir.
I can love it. Oh man, oh that was great. All right, so it's time for the main event, and it is the
War Games Advantage match. It is a ladder match to win the advantage for War Games, I believe.
Yep. All right. It's Pete Dunne versus Kyle O'Reilly. Kyle O'Reilly is out first as Vic Joseph explains the rules. Whomever retrieves the case hanging above the ring will give their team the War Games advantage. We see the members of the Undisputed Era in a little platform behind the ring with Danny Burch and Oney Lorcan on their own platform. Then Pete Dunne gets in the ring. Kyle O'Reilly wastes no time. And also, I need to add that on the other platform, you see the other members of the Undisputed Era. So this match, ladder matches are becoming a very common thing. Which I don't know if it's a good thing or a bad thing. I love the ladder match, but at a certain point, these gimmick matches can be overused. I feel the ladder match is kind of slowly hitting that territory because the whole what more can you do with a ladder question comes up. You know, there will come a point where we have literally seen it all with a ladder match. But I gotta give it to them because right from the get-go, they did stuff that you rarely see in a ladder match. The dragon screw off of in the ladder for one. Kyle O'Reilly's or Pete Dunne pushing the ladder as Kyle O'Reilly is climbing to it, and Kyle O'Reilly does this weird flip, and somehow the ladder falls on top of him. Was another example. They did a lot of different unique things at the first 5 minutes of this match.
Absolutely. I also like that Dunne had a focused attack. Usually ladder match is just spot. But Pete Dunne focused his attack on Kyle O'Reilly's hand the entire match, and it kind of paid off throughout the match when he was trying to climb and Dunne would do the classic finger breaky thing, or he was working on a specific body part throughout the match, which tied it all together.
The spot that made me cringe early on was when Pete Dunne puts the ladder on top of O'Reilly's hand and climbs. I wish the commentators pointed that out a little more, because it ended up being a subtle thing, but it kind of added and began the story of what you just said, the work on the hand, the classic Pete Dunne bendy, stretchy of the fingers. Matt, what else happened in this match? Tell our awesome listeners.
Yeah, we can go down spot by spot, but so one thing that really stood out to me was Kyle O'Reilly gave Pete Dunne the classic suplex on the ladder, but it was a straight up AJPW brainbuster on a ladder, and it was gross. It looked really, really bad. This was a hard hitting match. I would have liked it more had it not been for the cheesy finish, but to progress the storyline, I recognize they did what they had to do. But yeah, this was a really, really good in-ring match for 95% of it.
Do you want to talk about that finish? You haven't analyzed any match tonight, so I'll give you this one.
Sure, yeah. Well, briefly, so they're both climbing the ladder. There's a ladder set up in the corner. Pete Dunne takes an incredible bump off the ladder in the corner. It was also sick, very gross. And Kyle O'Reilly's about to win the title when a masked man comes out, kind of moving a little bit like Pat McAfee, but apparently McAfee wasn't there. So I don't really know who this masked man was. Boris, if you have any theories, feel free to take it away.
Balor.
Think it was Balor, eh?
But one thing I didn't notice was the height of this person.
True. It did seem like they were fairly tall. I didn't catch much about them either. But yeah, and then Masked Man pushes Kyle O'Reilly off, our second Masked Man in as many segments, and Pete Dunne quickly scurries up the ladder, wins the match. Go fuck yourself, Undisputed Era, and they get the advantage. Now, I do want to say, obviously the heels pretty much have to have the advantage in a War Games match for it to work. But
which is actually kind of funny because one thing that Undisputed Era was touting all night was they've never lost an advantage ladder match all night. And guess what? They were always the heels. So there you go.
Yeah, absolutely. But I do think because I don't know, I think it's possible to do it in a way that you don't have to always have the same ending to these matches, right? Because eventually they're going to have to twist it up and have the babyface win one of these things. Eventually they're going to have to do it, and they're going to have to figure out a way to do it. But for now, they kind of did what they had to do and what you're expecting. And honestly, WWE very rarely does the thing that they should just do. They very rarely do the logical thing, and they did here. So hey,
WWE main roster.
Yes. A distinction we've drawn a lot tonight, but yes. So yeah, overall, very good, extremely watchable episode of NXT. I think they won the war tonight. They won the battle tonight. They obviously did not win the war tonight, but they won tonight's battle, I think. And next week is going to be a heck of a show for both programs.
Yep. Before we talk about kind of, what to expect next week and why next week is important, you forgot one thing, Playa.
Play it. That's true. So going to the match rating, I probably would have rated this above 4 players, but the ending really took me out of it. I was just
Agreed.
like, oh, come on. Like, you're going to do every ladder match ending. Like, okay, fine. Like, you guys, I feel like they earned it because the match was so good, but at the same time, it took me down a little bit. So I'm going to go 4 players. I shouldn't have done the accent on 4. 4 players. Playa. For an 80% percentage. I think this was really good, and this was my match of the night, Boris.
Oh, man. I agree with you. I'm noticing the trend. I think you and I have a lot more similar taste of wrestling than I thought.
Yes, except you hate the Young Bucks. No, I'm just kidding. We've gone down that road before. I'm just joking.
I should just get a t-shirt made. Anti-Bucks.
Your anti-Bucks agenda has been clear for some time.
Oh, man. I love
So
them.
I think we can just briefly breeze by this part because we've already said our match of the night was both the ladder match, although Kushida versus Thatcher, very good as well.
Yep.
I think our promo of the night was the same as well.
Was it Kevin Owens?
It sure was, buddy. That was comedy and wrestling done perfectly. It put the match over without making any of the 3 guys look like goofballs, although Johnny kind of always looks like a goofball, but he came out in white pants. He was trying to look like a goofball.
Exactly.
Anyway, this was great comedy and wrestling, great promo. Kevin Owens leaning up against the 4th wall, but not quite breaking it, was just a treat. Just a delight, Boris, it was.
I agree. And again, Damian Priest is such a cool face.
He's a good baby face. He's a really cool, just laid back, like, nah, I'm kind of the best and I kind of know it. And once I get my chance, I'll fucking kill all y'all. So I'm biding my time and it's all right.
Like, I have a
really
feeling
cool
that
character.
that is Damian Priest, like the person who he actually is.
It feels like it. It definitely feels like it.
And again, I will say, like, it's very rare that I get to say this, but I enjoy not only a face, but I enjoy the WWE character more than the Ring of Honor character.
Yeah, it's a rare one. It's a rare one, but they're pulling it off. And kudos to the performer himself. Damian Priest himself is doing good work. He gets it. You can tell he gets it.
Yep. Exactly. He's improved so much. Like, he's so much better now than he was, like, even a year or 2 ago. All right. Next week is a huge week because not only is it the go-home show for
War Games, by God, on the WWE Network.
it is also Winter is Coming for AEW, where we have a mega main event of Jon Moxley versus Kenneth Omega.
I'm also excited for the Diamond Dynasty Battle Royal or whatever they're calling it, the Diamond Dozen, the Dime a Dozen Battle Royal. I don't know what they're calling it, but hopefully Scorpio Sky wins it. It seems like they were setting that up, and I'm excited to see him get a little push. And AEW has got my attention. I'll be watching that one live and catching up on NXT. To be completely honest with our fans.
Yeah. So you typically watch AEW live, though, right?
Yes. Yeah, that's kind of how we do that. I feel like you kind of flip, but mostly watch NXT, and I watch AEW live and then catch NXT either in the morning or that night. Yeah,
I gotta say, last night was very difficult to watch both because both shows were so good.
Yeah, there was a lot happening on both. Like, AEW Dynamite is feeling more and more like Nitro, but in a good way. Not like Russo Nitro, like classic Nitro.
Like Bischoff,
lots happening.
early days of NWO
I'm not the first to make
Nitro.
that comparison, but...
Yep. Exactly. And again, one thing that I'm really enjoying about NXT week to week is that we get a story being told throughout the night, segment to segment. I'm really enjoying, I'm kind of enjoying the overall dynamics of, Team LeRae. And I'm actually enjoying and looking forward to the women's War Games match more than the men's.
Absolutely. Last year, the women's War Games match was high on my list of match of the year with the Dakota Kai heel turn. That was last year, right? Time has blended together, but I'm 90% sure that was last year, and that was a really good match. The women's War Games match where Dakota Kai turned heel was a match of the year contender. Period. And I'm excited for it. I'm excited to see because all 8 wrestlers kind of can bring it in the ring in this one. It hasn't been announced, but we're probably getting the babyface team of Shotzi, Ember, Io, and Rhea.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so all 8 wrestlers are very, very good. So
Yeah, exactly. And that's the reason why they kind of did that whole beatdown on Rhea, just so that they can include Io and her into the War Games match. But it also kind of puts us in a great position after War Games, because who's gonna be in the title race? What breakout stories are we gonna have? All 8 women have really good, short-term futures on NXT TV.
I'm very excited. Like Wade Barrett says, it's the most exciting division in all of wrestling, NXT women.
Yeah, honestly, he's not far from the truth, to be honest. Like, the women's NXT division is just it's so standout.
As WWE catchphrases go, that one's pretty good. I buy it.
Yep. All right. I think that puts a nice little bookend to our Wednesday night chat. And let's move on to the bigger, broader week that was professional wrestling in our segment that we like to call What Made Us Pop, What Made Us Rant. We're going to start with our pops. Matt, you can start.
Well, Boris, my pop is that War Games looks incredibly entertaining, looks great. I can't wait to see Pat McAfee in a cage match. It'll be funny to see what kind of insane bumps he takes for the team.
Yeah.
I'm super, super pumped for the triple threat match. Very excited for the women's War Games. War Games looks great. I am more excited for this than I was for Survivor Series by a wide margin. I'm actually more excited for War Games than I am for Winter is Coming next week, although Moxley versus Omega will be an insane wrestling match. It will be very good. But yeah, War Games is the thing I'm looking forward to most in wrestling. Cannot wait.
Agreed. All right, what made me pop, and that was a match that I was actually really looking forward to all last week, but it even surpassed my expectations, and that was your main event from Survivor Series. That is Roman Reigns versus Drew McIntyre. What a match. One of the better main roster matches I've seen in a very long time. Say what you want about him. Roman Reigns can make anyone look freaking good. He's such a good worker. That match just stayed with, oh man, it was just so good. I just loved the storytelling in the match. I love the fact that the ending came down to Roman Reigns is frustrated and just beating the shit out of Drew McIntyre. It was great. And even though, and this is something that you rarely see in WWE main roster, and that is, even after a loss, Drew McIntyre looks strong as fuck.
Yes, and they did some shenanigans with the Uso brothers, but it wasn't to the detriment of Drew McIntyre's character. It wasn't like such a cheesy distraction finish that like, oh, he's a bad babyface now. Like, you're an idiot. Like, yeah. It was again, it felt earned, which is a term I've used again. But yeah, that match was really, really good. I like that they looked similar and it was a back and forth match. It was like unique in that way. Like two guys who look just physically so similar, Roman Reigns and Drew McIntyre. It was an interesting dichotomy. Really, really entertaining match. Yeah. I liked it a lot.
I did as well. I really, really liked it a lot. And yeah, that was my pop of the week. What made me pop? All right, Matt. Last week we got a little too aggressive or not aggressive enough. But what made you rant?
I'm going to dial it back a little this week. Not that I'm scared to get, my dander up, but it's not so high this week. But so the Undisputed Era, I'm sure there'll be great baby faces in the ring. I can't wait to see the War Games match. They're terrible babyface characters right now. Way too goofy. Even Adam Cole is a little goofy.
Yeah.
I don't know if he can carry a promo, but the other three guys are just out to lunch. I want to see Bobby Fish get his ass kicked anyway, just because of his fucking mustache and his politics and his Twitter feed and just the way he generally is. I think he has to be a heel. But even like Roddy and Kyle are just way too goofy, way too like cheesy. The only moment of that promo that was good is when Kyle O'Reilly got serious and he was staring into the camera. They need to lean into athletic, cool, kind of MMA style babyface.
I agree.
You got to give it a chance because that's my whole thing. I will give it a chance, but this was a swing and a miss week one, my opinion.
Yep, I agree. I agree with that, though that was not my rant of the week. My rant of the week was one, and I struggled with this one because I didn't want to call this out, but It was the final farewell to The Undertaker.
Oof.
What a missed opportunity this was. I understand the timing was impeccable with 30 years of his from his debut, but should have waited for a crowd. And this was nothing compared to Ric Flair's final send-off. This was nothing compared to so many people's final send-off. And how can you take the most iconic character, an Undertaker, the most iconic character for the past 30 years in all of professional wrestling, a person who kayfabed so much that until the past, 12 to 18 months, we never really knew what Mark Calloway sounded like. To take all of
Except
that.
for that one interview with Michael Landsberg on Off the Record.
Yes.
But I digress.
Man, Michael Landsberg killed it for years. Anyways.
Legend.
Yeah. And, I gotta say that overall, I was very, very disappointed with the final send-off. Outside of the Paul Burr hologram, I don't know. It just didn't feel special. It dragged on. There was no reason to have everyone in the ring. Also, I called out AEW for being irresponsible during a global pandemic. So what does WWE do? They fill the ring full of legends and old guys. No social distancing. The only person wearing a mask was the anti-masker himself, Kane.
And it was covering the wrong spots.
Yep. So I'm just playing it. I'm playing it equal grounds, Man, but overall,
hey man,
it added nothing. It was cool to see Savio Vega and the Godfather and even the Godwins. Oh man, did they not age well? But overall, there was no point to having them there. The video package was cool. The visuals were cool, but it missed a certain, as the French say, I don't know what.
666% agree with you, buddy.
Yes.
No, that was, you know what? It was so nothing that I bet it's not the final farewell. They're just going to forget about it and run it back for the Hall of Fame or whatever it is, whenever fans can come. You know what they should have done? They shouldn't have billed it as final farewell. If they did the exact same thing, but billed it as 30th anniversary or something else, whatever other buzzword, final farewell was just dumb because it got the expectations way too high for what they delivered, which was nothing. I also agree about it being cool to see like the Godwins and Savio Vega, but also like feeling gross to see them. Like, this shouldn't be. And then they just left anyway. They didn't do anything. They didn't toast him. They didn't fucking shake his hand. Yeah, it was weird and shouldn't have happened without a crowd.
You know
obviously.
how we
obviously should not have happened without a crowd.
Yeah.
Obviously.
Yeah. You know how we always say that cinematic segments in wrestling is getting too much? This is a perfect example of where you could have done a cinematic segment.
Yeah, why not? Especially with what we got, you may as well have. And again, you don't have to do a cinematic segment when you can fill an arena, but guess what? You can't. So they could have done something like a video package, some kind of like, even like in the graveyard, all these guys that he's beaten, like all the souls he's taken, that could have been really cool. They could have done so much, but instead they just trotted old guys out to the ring without masks for no reason and then told them to fuck off.
Exactly. And I always get a little nervous when a legend takes the mic and talks about, thanking the fans and his legacy, blah, 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 because the last time that we got that was the Ultimate Warrior, and we saw what happened that night. So I got a little nervous for a second, but it just didn't feel final to me.
No, absolutely. I think there's no chance that they leave it on that note. There's no chance unless something tragic happens to the Undertaker. He will be back in some capacity for sure.
Yeah. Yep. So that was our rant of the week. What made us rant? What made us pop? What made us pop? What made us rant? We gotta get some cool music to intro us to these segments. That's
maybe like a little royalty-free action from the YouTubes or something. No,
Exactly.
People, you can get a proper theme done.
Exactly. All right, Matt. Well, I think that leaves us to our last little bit of news, and that is last week we were talking about the fact that some awesome listeners were requesting reviews, and guess what? We will deliver them to you as a special outside of our usual Thursday time slot. I don't know exactly when we're going to record it, but some point next week you will be getting a couple reviews in a special show that I'm gonna call something flashy. And it's gonna be cool because we're gonna be talking about classic wrestling, and we're also gonna be talking about one of my favorite matches in all of wrestling, all of 2020, in Walter and Ilya Dragunov.
Absolute war. Can't wait to talk about either of those things. We'll also be talking about both a primetime wrestling episode, the go home show for the Survivor Series 1989, and the Survivor Series itself. Quite an insane couple programs of wrestling, and I can't wait, Boris. It's very exciting.
Yeah.
Big
All right.
things popping, little things stopping here at the NXT Talk program show.
Exactly. Matt, before we go, do you have anything else to say to wrap us up in a neat little package?
Well, I would, if I may, I'd like to plug a little thing I did with the great Brian Mazik, who's a writer for Forbes and Operation Sports and a bunch of places. He calls himself the hardest working man in video games or video game writing, or I forget exactly what his nickname is, but it's hard to argue. He's all over the place. And yeah, so we did a little video podcast. I was asked to be the first guest on it. Absolutely honored. People are watching it. Very excited. If you care about Madden 21 or just want to see more of this mug of mine, feel free to check that out.
Please do. It's always cool seeing, our non-wrestling views. I think that's it. So we're going to have more news next week on where you can find us. But until then, that wraps up our tour this week as we give you everything NXT here on NXT Talk. He's Matt. I'm Boris. Good night.